This morning we're going to have an interesting conversation. You maybe remember last week we talked with a gentleman by the name of Rick Simpson, who's done a lot of work with hemp oil, using hemp oil for healing and working with cancer patients up in Canada, and also Professor Millamade in Colorado, who has done quite a bit of research and work on the medicinal uses of marijuana. This morning you heard the gentleman say hello, and he's let's see, you're right outside of near Harvard University, Dr. Lester Greenspoon?
I'm in Boston, essentially. I'm in a community in Boston.
Well, it's nice to have you here, sir. It's Dr. Lester Greenspoon. He's Associate Professor Emeritus at Harvard Medical School. A couple of years, back in the 70s, he wrote Marijuana Reconsidered and Psychedelic Drugs Reconsidered. And then not too long ago, Marijuana, the Forbidden Medicine. So, Doctor, your interest in marijuana has gone for a very long time. I read where you're actually out to write a book extolling the bad virtues of this herb, and somewhere along the way you got turned around on your thoughts about, well, maybe this isn't so bad.
Well, that's exactly right. In 1967, I found myself with some unexpected time because the junior author on a book I was doing on schizophrenia was going to be 2 months late, and I had to wait for his piece to put the book together. So I went to the library because I was so concerned about young people using this terribly dangerous drug, marijuana, and I thought that I could write if I could write an objective piece based on the scientific data, and publish it in a vehicle that was accessible to them, I might stop some of this madness. Well, what turned out was that I discovered that despite my training in medicine and science, I had been brainwashed that this substance, marijuana, was far less dangerous than alcohol or tobacco, that in fact it's remarkably non-toxic. There's never been a death from it. And I went from there, and that started me on a long interest in researching this substance. And that first endeavor led to a book published by Harvard University Press, published in 1971, called Marijuana Reconsidered.
I see. And your background is, I guess, can we say the brain, the mind, psychology, those kinds of things? It's kind of the essence of your background?
Yeah, I'm a professor of psychiatry. That's exactly what I deal with.
Us crazy people.
Yeah, well, yep.
Well, I have to say that my limited experience with marijuana, I'll get it out front so when people hear me talk about it, they'll know where I'm coming from. It's always I have a good reference, was 1975 to the early 80s, where I tried marijuana for the first time in 75, and then after that I tried it a lot, and for nearly, about 8 years or so, and then let go of it. My experiences was over those a little less than 10 years, Dr. Greenspoon, is that I wasn't all that productive during that time, or look back, I don't feel like I was, but I don't feel like I really did anything strange or anything, but I don't feel like I really accomplished much during that time. And that goes back to the whole concept of this slacker, stoner, kind of idea where people use a psychedelic drug like this, and I guess I suppose it is slightly psychedelic, and then don't do much.
Well, that's an idea that was first promoted by a man by the name of Louis Jordan West in the 70s. The people who do marijuana become lazy and don't do anything.
Right.
There's absolutely not. I don't know what was going on with you, but it wasn't the marijuana. People work people can use it and slack off and not do anything, but it has nothing to do with the marijuana. On the other hand, people work very hard using, like Carl Sagan, who used it daily and thought it was essential for his work. Now, I was Carl. We were best friends. I was best man at his last two weddings. He was married 3 times. and I've never known anybody who works so hard. So that part of it is just nobody, even the government doesn't try to make that point anymore because there's just no data to support it.
Well, maybe it would just be a weakness in my personality where you get this feeling of euphoria, and rather than to move forward with your task at hand, you whatever, and that would be lend more to a weakness that I would have whether or not I was on marijuana or hot chocolate.
Yeah, well,
or coffee or something.
Yeah, right. I think that you, whatever was going on in your life then, there are people, there's no question about it, there are people who, and I certainly am not speaking of you, but there are young people who just haven't figured out what they want in life and they just goof around. And one of the ways they get involved in is smoking marijuana. They smoke a lot of it until they figure out what they're going to do with their lives. But there's nothing to that. There's no data you can bring to that hypothesis that West and Green proposed in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm. So you're arguing over the years that. Professor, that there's a correct use, a wrong use, abuse use, that kind of thing. It's just different for everybody.
There's no question it can be abused, and there are people who abuse it. But that's true of almost anything in life. That noise of someone trying to burst into this line, just ignore it.
So that would be true, like we said, of wine or chocolate or sugar or coffee, I guess, of anything could be overabused, right?
Exactly.
But the idea that one has euphoria from an outside substance, I've always felt like in a way that weakens the inner person of who they really are, for they're using something outside of themselves to get somewhere that they could be anywhere without it.
No, I disagree with you because, in fact, I have a relatively new website called marijuana-uses.com, where people write in about their uses. I used to believe there was simply recreational use of this dangerous drug.
Go out to a party or something like that.
Yeah, exactly, and it's very useful socially. People are more sociable and so forth.
Sure.
And the first thing I disabused myself of when I started this work in 1967 is that it's dangerous. It's remarkably non-toxic. Secondly, I came to understand that there was more to marijuana than recreational use. I had a first-hand experience with the medicinal use, which I wrote about in Marijuana Reconsidered in 1971, but you could only write about the 19th century use of marijuana as a medicine in Western medicine because once in the United States